Welcome to 2nd edition Wargaming, I'm Rob, and in this video we're going to cover using navigators in your games of 2nd edition 40k. Okay, this isn't a lore video per se, but navigators have been around since Rogue Trader, so let's take a quick look at their development leading up to 2nd edition. Described in Rogue Trader as a type of stable mutant created during the Dark Age of technology to assist with warp travel, they are now vital to the Imperium's survival. Interestingly, the Rogue Trader description states that they never have psychic powers and are no more susceptible to warp entities than the average human. They generally sport visible mutations, but these are of a cosmetic nature, such as being gangly or having large hands or eyes, and they don't generally impact on gameplay. Next up is chapter approved The Book of the Astronomicon, or the first Book of the Astronomicon as it becomes known. Two examples of navigator characters are included under the Imperial Characters section, but there's nothing that expands their lore or gameplay from the original Rogue Trader entry. Then we have Ian Watson's Inquisitor novel. In this, several navigator characters feature quite prominently. Inquisitor is the first mention of the navigator's third eye and its associated powers. A fair bit later, we have White Dwarf 140. This contains a Space Fleet article that again mentions the presence of a third eye and also mentions the navigator's lifespan being from 300 to 400 years. Then we arrive at 2nd edition. Characters like astropaths and navigators were not present in Codex Imperialis that came with the main box set, nor were they included later in the Dark Millennium box. I guess with 40k cutting its ties to the RPG skirmish style of gameplay, it's not surprising that these elements would be dropped. It's my suspicion that they would have probably appeared as retinue options in Codex Imperial Agents if it had ever been released, as can be seen in later editions of 40k. I'm fairly certain navigators as characters went mostly unmissed during 2nd edition, but there were rules available for them published in the Citadel Journal number 18. In the journal article, written by Warwick Kinrad, it mentions the now well-established third eye, embellishing it as a second sight, and interestingly has the navigators as incredibly resistant to chaos. There's some background fluff building on the lore established in the Space Fleet article, and some good ideas for scenarios involving navigators, such as inquisitorial purges and pogroms and trade wars between navigator houses. But enough of that, onto the rules. Right, firstly, how do you include navigators in your normal games of 2nd edition 40k? Any number can be taken by any army that can ally with Imperial agents. Or a navigator can lead a force of household troops or mercenaries with a strategy rating of 1. There are 3 levels of navigator: Navigator, Navigator Master, and Novator. Their stats increase with each level as you would expect, with 1, 2 and 3 war gear cards being available respectively. They all suffer from the Curse of the Misborn, which is a roll on a mutations table, and they can have any number of options from the navigator weapons and armour tables. Their special rules see them immune to psychology from demons of chaos, and although demonic attack can nullify their power, more on that in a bit, they cannot be dragged into the warp. Okay, so the Curse of the Misborn. This is basically a 2d6 roll on the navigator's mutation table. The result can range from anorexic to mentally unstable, with nearly all affecting a characteristic or having some other in-game effect, such as being subject to frenzy or causing fear. Okay, last but not least, as hinted at before, navigator powers. In this rendition, the third eye bestows the equivalent to psychic powers upon the navigator. And you get 1 psychic power per character level, so a Novator would be a level 3 psyker. There are 4 psychic powers from which to draw. In contradiction to Dark Millennium, Unlike other psychers, if there are multiple navigators in an army, they may possess some or all of the same psychic powers as each other. I don't know why. I'm assuming that because the psychic powers come from the warp eye, all navigators develop these powers at some point in their lives. Other than this, their psychic powers work just like normal powers. Okay, so let's take a look at their powers, starting with Lidless Stare. This is a 1 force card power with a range of 12. You can put from 1 to 3 force cards into it, affecting 1 to 3 models respectively. It's basically a leadership test or die. Next up, Inertia. This is a 1 force card power with a range of 24. Used against enemy psychers, makes all their powers cost an extra force card to cast, and remains in play. Then we've got Warp Gaze. This is a 2 force card power and basically uses a heavy flamer template from the Navigator model. This is a strength 6 D3 damage warp blast template attack that only allows basic armor saves, no fields. And lastly, Temporal Distortion. Now this is an awesome power that nods back to the level 4 power Temporal Distort from Rogue Trader. Temporal Distortion allows an individual or squad to take its entire turn again, except for the psychic phase. So you can pick a unit and it can move, shoot, carry out hand-to-hand combat, etc. all again within that psychic phase. As you can imagine, this can be a lot of fun. So what do we think about these rules? Well, for me personally, I think it's cool to have some rules to represent navigators in our games of 2nd edition. In the few scenarios we've played, they've been a lot of fun and they haven't really broken the game any more than any other unit usually does. They work really well as part of a Rogue Trader's retinue, bringing sort of narrative character and also something different with their psychic powers. And hopefully we'll get some of those scenarios on the channel in the future. Now, if you don't like the idea of navigators having psychic powers, you could always just give them the Lidless Stare power as a shooting attack, either in the shooting phase or perhaps in the psychic phase. You know, you could adjust these rules to suit your games however you see fit. Okay, so that pretty much covers navigators in 2nd edition 40k. I hope this was interesting or useful to some of you out there. Thanks for watching. See you next time.